And there is that particular government flagship program that has over the years gained a lot of political capital. I'm talking about the free SHS program. But as always, there's definitely a side of the free SHS program that has over the years also had a lot of controversy. If you look at the program in full itself, lots of controversies, lots of positive also feedback on the free SHS program. But definitely the double track system in a span of 8 years or 7 years hasn't really had that good reception in terms of the green, the gold, and the track system, the double track system that we are talking about. But in fact, if you look at how long it's been in the system, about 7 years. The whole plan was that we introduced, I'm talking about the MPP administration in 2017, introducing the free SHS program with the hope that within 5 to 7 years, and due to infrastructure deficit, they introduced something new to our secondary education cycle that we didn't really know. That's a double track system. And when they brought this system, the hope was that between 2023 and 2025, that's a period of 5 to 7 years, the double track system should be phased out. But we've done close to about 7 years or more than 7 years. We still have the double track system in place. And before the former education minister actually left office, he said that, we understand that there were campaigns about scrapping of the double track system. But we should understand that around that time where the campaigns became intense, already about 70% of SHS schools were already not running on a double track. And he ended by saying that if we go ahead to cancel the double track anytime soon, that could be disastrous. That was his word in the lead up to the when he, the NDC actually won power in January of 2025 when they took the reins of power. He said that if you look at the deficit we have so far and what we have to deal with in terms of infrastructure, it will be disastrous to cancel the double track system. But we had new directive, and the current education minister doesn't seem to be on the same tangent with the former education minister. He said that, if we look at the double track system currently, it is having a negative impact on, secondary education delivery in the country. And so therefore we need to find ways and means to scrap it. He says this must go. And the double track system, we understand per the new calendar, it will be no more, especially if you are looking at it from the tangent of those who will be coming in as first year students. But what are the challenges over the 7-year period that this double track system has been run? Infrastructure is one key problem. There's also overcrowding issues and food shortages. These are the three thematic areas in terms of the problems that over the years we've had to deal with. And you've seen parents and even NAGRA, Teachers Association, all complaining about these three areas, saying that even with teachers, at a point in time, just about a year ago, they were complaining that they couldn't even have holidays because of the double track system. And they really wanted government to revert to the normal, system that they knew, that was a 3-term system, and they were not so comfortable with a trimester system. These were the areas that over the period of 7 years had a lot of problem. And definitely, if you look at it on the smart world, you could see the reason why the double track system was introduced, because as at the time that the free SHS program was introduced, if you look at it from this graph, you see the graph in red is BEC candidates, and the graph in blue will show you senior high school enrollment. So before the introduction of the free SHS program, and in fact the double track system, you can see the gap between BEC candidates, those who sat for the BEC, and enrollment. Big gap between enrollment and those who sat for the examination. Many had passed but couldn't afford and had to sit at home. You look at, coming from 2017 to 2018, the gap was actually shrunk significantly. Look at how the gap actually closed between 2016 and 2018. That, according to many, or definitely you will bring on board the free senior high school effect, where everybody got a chance to go to school. There was no tuition barrier. There were so many barriers that were actually, removed for everybody to go to school. But from 2018, when we saw the peak in terms of enrollment, what you are seeing is that we are back to the period where there is that big gap between, those who sit for the, BEC, and also those who are able to enroll in senior high school. The question is, why are we still having this gap some years after introducing the free SS program? When I sit down with my guests, we'll try and find answers to why we've gone back to this gap when we had already closed it in 2018. And the anticipation was that we should even have a point where we were going to see not an asymptotic movement, but rather, very, very tangential, where they move together, touching each other in terms of the curve, closing that gap. And almost everybody that finishes BEC should be in senior high school. But that has not been the case, especially if you look at it from 2018 when the program started, or that year when the program started. It's also good to look at it on this tangent, because one of the reasons why the double track system was introduced was the infrastructure deficits. And we have been able to track between 2015 and 2024. If you look at the Education Ministry's own program-based budget, what has been the total number of senior high schools scattered across the length and breadth of the country? Look at it on this tangent. Between 2015 and 2016, when we had no free senior high school, we understand that President Mahama then had introduced free senior high school at the day school level, where they were not paying school fees at that point in time. And if you do the math, you see that about 16 schools were actually introduced within this period. But just as when we introduced the free senior high school 2017-2018 academic year, what you see is that there was a significant jump in the number of senior high schools in the country. Many will say that maybe it could be because some of the schools were actually started in 2016 and 2015. But what we can tell you, the story we can tell you, is that there was that significant jump. About more than 40 senior high schools were added just between this period. And if you do the math, try and get the average over this period, although we had the first time, you can actually see between 2015 and 2017, that big jump between these 2 years. And then also we saw another jump between 2018 and 2019. But after COVID, when the country had that difficulty with its economy, what you see is that slow or plateau growth in the number of senior high schools we have in the country. And maybe many have said that this could be the reason why the former education minister says that, well, we may have about 70% already not on the wavelength of the double track, but it will be disastrous to possibly cancel the double track system, because we are already, or we are not yet at where we want to be, although the plan was to phase it out 2023 or by 2025. Not just on that curve. If you look at the total number of teachers who are also teaching this, student, looking at it from 2015 to 2024, you've seen a significant jump, especially between 2020 and 2021, and then as well between 2016 and 2017, simply because you needed more teachers. If you want to do double track system, you needed to employ more teachers, and you can see the curve. But over the period, what we are seeing is that this growth rate has been slowing down. We are still adding more, but the rate at which we are employing more teachers into our senior high schools is reducing after peaking in 2021 and plateauing for a period, and we are seeing that significant drop in 2024. Now, that's also another story that we'll be finding answers to. Beyond that, what is the plan so far? The minister has spoken, but what is his plan to phase out the double track system, which is a component of the free SHS program. He said, well, we are going to expand infrastructure. And beyond that, what we are also going to do is to strengthen digital resources and as well partner with private schools. When my guest joins me, we will ask, important questions about these three steps or these three means by which the government wants to do away with the double track system. But so far, this is the roadmap. This is a template that they want to work with to make sure that the free senior high school is no more. There is a new calendar, and that was announced, last week. And as you can see, government wants to revert to the normal calendar that we used to have before the COVID period, and also trying to add more weeks to the number to actually improve the contact hours. We will be asking tough questions also about the contact hours, especially under the free senior high school, and the quality of the program as well. But you cannot do anything without funds, right? That is why it was important to track between 2016 and 2025 how much we have committed or allocated to the free senior high school project, or to our education budget in terms of the ministry's budget to fund basic education, to fund free senior high school. And then also on top of this government has introduced the no fee stress policy as well. 66 billion Ghana cedis is what we are talking about in terms of commitment to education. But whilst this is a big amount, that's about close to about 16 billion US dollars, it will surprise you that we spend about 76% of that just to pay salaries and wages. The big question is, how much is even left to do goods and services, which is very, very important, because if you are doing free senior high school, people must eat, people must sleep, and they need to find facilities to do all of this. So if you are using just about 13% of your budget to fund goods and services, then it's clear that we definitely depend a lot on donors. But the question is, in years that the donors themselves are also thinking about, themselves, what do we do to make sure that we plug that loophole? Looking at it on the tangent of even the US aid being cut and all of that. Look at CAPEX, very, very important. If you are going to build any new infrastructure, it should be captured under this. But just about 7% of the budgetary allocation so far has been for CAPEX. And that is another important question that we'll be finding questions to. But whilst we talk about the big monies that have been allocated so far, it is also important to look at the budget credibility, especially if you look at it on the tangent of free senior high school. We talk about committing so much. This year, for instance, government has committed about 3.5 billion Ghana cedis for the free senior high school initiative alone. But the story of budget credibility has not been so good. So you look at 2017-2018 academic year, we spent more than we budgeted. That was a good news, especially looking at the fact that that was the initial year. But apart from that year, we have simply not met the budgetary allocation, especially for the free senior high school. 2018-2019, we did well. 99% of what we budgeted was actually disbursed. 19 and 2020, what you see that a significant drop to 76%, 58% in 2021, and then 51% in 2022. So although we talk about big amounts of money being allocated to the free senior high school, if you look at it from the spectacle of budget credibility, that has not been a good story so far. And so if there is a campaign or there is a promise to scrap the double track system, another big question is, how are we going to deal with the budget credibility? The amount that we commit to solve this issue, how do we make sure we disburse it? And that will be our conversation here on PM Express. We're asking a very simple question. The quest to scrap the double track system, is it going to offer relief, or we should expect burden ahead? My guest will join me after this short break. You're welcome back here on PM Express. And PM Express, as you always know, is brought to you by Tang. It is strong, it is tough. An academic time, Pepsodent Cavity Fighter toothpaste. And Ghana, let's talk water tanks. Do you know the secret to real water storage? It is simple. If your tank doesn't have the tortoise on it, then it is not the correct tank. And that's right, the tortoise tank, that's the Syntex tank, is the champion of water tanks. It is strong and durable and built to handle our Ghanaian weather, rain or shine. Syntex tank has your back. Syntex tank is strong and tough. Academic Times journal is launching soon with 3 distinctive graphic publications and a journal to showcase and empower students across all educational levels, while the journal and the tertiary G seeks to ensure that tertiary students, that is their research impact contributing to institutional and national development. The high G and basic G seeks to develop critical thinking and prepare young minds for their higher education. And as you always know, after PM Express, you need to brush before you sleep because every time you eat food and sugars are trapped between our teeth, leading to decay and gum disease. And in some cases, foul breath. And brushing your teeth every morning and night with Pepsodent Cavity Fighter gives your teeth the protection it needs, leaving your teeth with 10 times stronger. Pepsodent, every smile matters. And my guests have joined me for a conversation here on PM Express. Dr. Kwabena Bumpe Tando is the former Deputy Director General of the Ghana Education Service. Eric Edemagbana, he is the Member of Parliament for Ketu North constituency and also a member on the Education Committee of Parliament. Dr. Peter Atefua, a Senior Education Advisor at the Education Watch. He will also join us via Zoom. So I have 2 gentlemen in studio, and Dr. Atefua will join us via Zoom. Gentlemen, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I mean, we've all seen the data that we actually showed on the smart wall. Let me start with you, since you are, your government started the free SHS program, and the simple question is, in what state did you leave the free senior high school program?
Well, that's an interesting question, because in what state did we leave the free SHS program? When 2024 ended, some close to 3.7 million students had benefited from free SHS individually. If you count year on year, then about 5.7 million had benefited, but individually about 3.7 million students had benefited from the free SHS. Compared to before free SHS, this is close to a 35 to 40% increase in the number of students who have benefited from senior high school education, had it not been for free SHS and the expansion and access to education. That's number 1. Number 2, in terms of expansion or spaces available in schools, spaces has now expanded by approximately 170,000 new spaces have expanded because of free SHS and the infrastructure work that has been done. Number 3, in terms of academic performance of students, if you compare the last 10 years and the academic performance of students per the WASI data that is available to all of us in the core subject areas, free SHS has produced far more academically high-performing students in terms of pass rates in the last 5 years, if you look at a 10-year period from 2015 to 2024. That is also evident based on the fact that in the past 5 years, Ghanaian students have always topped the WAEC Excellence Award in the entire West Africa. Interesting data to really look at is that the first cohort of free SHS, and those are the students who started free SHS in 2017 and wrote their exam in 2020 in the midst of COVID. The entire West Africa, about 2.1 million students registered to write the WASSCE. Out of those students, 465 students in the entire West Africa had 8 A1s in all of the subjects that they prepared or they wrote in. The 465 students between Nigeria, Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Gambia. Ghana alone, the free SHS students, represented 411 of the 465. That's some 83%.
Is there any relative data to compare this to? Because maybe it could have been more in previous years.
No, this is the highest in terms of one country getting 83% of the 8 A1s. And that year, Ghana top student, second best, and third best. In 2021, Ghana was first best student and third best student. In 2022, Ghana was second and third best student. In 2023, Ghana was first and third. And in 2024, Ghana was second and third. If you look at the past 10 years, this is the first time Ghanaian students are featuring in the top 3. So on the score of academics, a lot has been done. On the score of infrastructure expansion, and I saw your introduction, and I was smiling, because if you look at it based on numbers of schools, you would say that not too many schools have been added. But you have to look at capacity of schools. And if you look at the capacity of schools, the free SHS and especially the introduction of the double track brought in some 1,132 new fiscal infrastructure.
Were they distributed even across all
They were
16
distributed
regions?
based on the needs of the school. So you look at demands in schools. So if you take, say, Bishop Hema Senior High School, and you take Tengbe Senior High School, you would realize that Bishop Hema has a higher, in terms of the demand. And so if you are putting dormitories, you may put a 200-bed dormitory in Tengbe, but you may put a 560-bed dormitory in Bishop Hema. So in terms of the distribution, analysis was done to ensure that you are sending the projects to where they are needed. But these projects were distributed across all 684 schools at the time of double track. And then, of course, new schools also came on board in terms of some of the STEM schools that we have seen dotted across the country.
Did you add E-blocks?
Yes. Yes. His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, when he was leaving office the first time in 2016, had completed 29 E-blocks. Now, by the time His Excellency President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo was also leaving office, former president was leaving office, he had completed 33 E-blocks. So if you look at it, yes, E-blocks were added. Model schools were added. And not just the 33 E-blocks. Some of the E-blocks that were built by His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, if you take the one in Edujaman, if you take the one in Pesempe, not Pesempe, in Paha, and then you take the one in, the name is not coming to me, but it's in Ashanti region, work was done to actually put boarding facilities because those schools were not accessible. So a lot of infrastructure work were done on existing infrastructures that were being built up, as well as new infrastructure. So on the measure of how the secondary school education system was left, there was a lot of work that was done in terms of infrastructure as well. Then let me quickly add, not just that, the work that was done quietly on digital preparation to ensure that, especially post-COVID-19, we are not going to have a challenge in terms of access to education if there is an emergency, whether it is a health crisis, other types of emergencies. Build up of the Ghana Knowledge and Skills Bank housed at the ministry, Honorable Sam George's ministry, Ministry for Communication. And the Ghana Knowledge and Skills Bank really holds, it's a repository of knowledge, repository of educational content for all up to senior high school. The Ghana Library Authority built the Ghana Library app, which also is a repository of educational content KG through senior high school. We worked with GBC to establish the Ghana Learning TV. Over 1,500 lessons were recorded and given to GBC to ensure that in an emergency, those are played over the Ghana Learning TV.
Okay.
We worked with them to establish the Ghana Learning Radio, and then, of course, with that one, 2,572 lessons for radio. It's also now being held by Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. So a lot of work was done.
Adam, I mean, this is the picture being painted by the former administration. And I mean, they said they build new schools. If not at all, I know of the Bosomtwe girls that was added, right? What was the status of the free senior high school that you inherited in January of 2025? Is it a direct contrast to the picture he has actually created now?
Yeah, Isaac, let me say good evening to my brother Doc, to you, and also to our cherished viewers across the world, and to say that education remains the bedrock of our national development, and it's important that anytime we have an important conversation like this on education, it must be grounded on facts, and also it must be solution-driven, tailored towards improving the current system so that we can offer the best of quality in education. Education is so important that, like some of us have always maintained, it is one of the areas that, as much as possible, we must not attempt putting political colorization, because what makes education important is also the fact that regardless of who you are, your race, and what have you, education becomes a leveler. But for education, son of a driver like myself may not have had the opportunity to share the same platform with you. And so education must be made accessible, must be free, must be as much as possible able to deliver quality so that everyone who can benefit. And indeed, when you take a look at our constitution, the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, and you go to the directive principles of state policy, in fact, in Article 38.3, it states that as much as possible, subject to the availability of resources, the state shall take steps to ensure secondary education and pre-tertiary education is accessible to all. And so it's actually a constitutional mandate that all of us, whether NDC, MPP, CPP, UPP, whichever party is in power, we have that constitutional mandate to deliver quality education and accessible to everyone. And that is why, even as a country that is signed onto the SDGs, we are enjoined in the SDG 4 to ensure that quality education is made accessible. And so I want us to have or pivot the conversation properly in this perspective. You asked a very important question. What was the state of the free SHS policy in January when we inherited? I think that the verdict is out there, and the Ghanaian people, all of us, are better judges of the kind of free SHS policy that we inherited. You'll recall, late December 2024, early January 2025, the free SHS policy of secondary education was bedeviled with even the challenge of feeding. Got to a point, common food for our students. Government was unable to provide it. It actually took an emergency intervention by the transition team to get food provided for our students. And so these are some of the palpable outcomes of the kind of educational system that they left behind. And I'll be going into the details. Doc made mention of some statistics, and I think for some of them, it is important for us to set the record straight. Doc was the Deputy Director General of the Ghana Education Service. And he came in, I think, 2018, if I'm right. I may be wrong. But at the time you came in, the Minister for Education was Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh. And Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh is on record to have said that President Mahama and the NDC left behind 46 completed E-blocks. And so where is the number of 29 coming from? When the sector minister who received the handing over notes went around this country, received reports from his directors, gave us another figure of 46. So all of a sudden, 46 were completed, And over a period, when you became deputy director, did that shrink? What happened to the rest? So 46 were completed and handed over. And I can recall, if you give me the opportunity before the end of the show, we can give you the entire list because that was provided at the time. So let it be on record that President Mahama completed 46 E-blocks before he left office. I will go into it. Again,
let him finish.
Doc gave us some very beautiful figures about the increase in numbers in terms of assets, citing 35% and what have you. Very beautiful figures. But you know what? In every educational system, education policy must be measured by 3 key benchmarks. The first one is accessibility, second one is affordability, and the third and most important is quality.
So has the free SHS met all these 3 benchmarks? So
accessibility, affordability, and the most important one is quality, because it is even more dangerous to give half-baked education than to give no education at all. And so quality must be maintained at all times. Now let's go into these 3 benchmarks. Accessibility. Indeed, the data proves that the free SHS policy led to a spike in the numbers, a spike that we have never seen at that level. In fact, after the first year, we were told that about 181,000 more students had access to free education. And so in terms of accessibility, indeed the free SHS policy expanded access. It expanded access not also because of the affordability alone. Don't forget, free SHS came with a twin policy of no cut-off. And so in the past, whether cost or not, there was a cut-off. And so if you fail to meet a certain grade point in your BEC, chances are that you may not be able to access or you may not be able to access secondary education.
So maybe
but in this case, so it wasn't only about the cost barrier. Yes, it is a fact that there were people who could not progress from junior high school to senior high school because of cost. But there were also a significant number of people who could not progress because of cutoff, because they failed to meet the point, the grade point. And as a member of parliament, I have a situation where now people come to you with their results and they need support and all of that. And for some of the results that you see today, in the previous regime where there was cut off, there is no way such results could have advanced or progressed to senior high schools unless to the private senior high schools and other schools that were offering remedials and what have you. And some students had to start their junior high school all over again. That is why before 2016, President Mahama introduced the remedial school or private BEC to give a second chance to those who failed the initial one, which is the public one, to also access. And so these interventions have been there, and they were all tailored towards attaining some quality. So beyond the cost, there was also an issue of cut-off that was removed. That also led to the spike that we experienced. But apart from access, the other 2 key benchmarks, affordability and quality, were negatively affected by the free SHS policy. And so again, the policy was a good idea, but poorly implemented. Okay, now let's go into the other 2 benchmarks. In terms of quality, there are several surveys conducted, research, and I will refer you to one. Jomo et al. And Jomo, I understand, lectures at GIMPA and got sponsorship from an organization in the United States, and they conducted a quasi-experience-led research into the impact of the free senior high school education alongside the double-track system. And their conclusion was that they were very emphatic in their conclusion that in terms of quality, free SHS failed to meet the standards and that it impacted negatively on the delivery of quality. So if the Minister for Education, the Honorable Haruna Idrisu, says free SHS impacted negatively on quality of education, he was speaking truth and he was speaking to the data and the research that was available.
But his point was mainly on the double-track system.
Yes, so I will go into the double-track. I will go into the double-track system if you allow me.
Let me bring in Edu Watch at this point. We'll come back to you on the double-track.
No, I wanted to just make one more correction. One more correction. Doc also tried to juxtapose our results with other West African countries. But since 2021, Ghana has not been writing WASI alongside the other African countries because the double track affected our academic calendar, and so we couldn't move with the other African countries. So until we begin to write the exams together, because what it's trying to do is that I cannot go with my team to play football at the time, pack and go home. You go play another time. Because I scored 3 goals, you scored 2. Even though we didn't play against each other, then I will come and say, I scored 3, I scored 2, so I performed better. Different times, we were not writing WASI, which the West African countries since 2021. And so that analysis is neither here nor there. It mustn't even find space in our conversation because you can only do that comparison if we were writing the exams together with the other West African countries. There are many other points on the double track system that we'll make after you take EduWatch.
I mean, you've had both conversations, Dr. Atefa. I mean, would you say that all 3 benchmarks were met or there were serious issues with the free SHS program, especially looking at the tangents of the double track system?
Thank you very much. The free SHS was launched in 2017 at West Africa Senior High School. And we all know that it came along with astronomical increase in the number of students. A lot of students who, one way or the other, could not have gotten access to senior high school or secondary education were able to attend. And for that matter, the numbers increased astronomically. Whilst the structures or the facilities, infrastructure that we had remained same. Therefore, there was a problem or a challenge created. And so we had to find solutions to that. The immediate solution that could be made was to introduce the double track, which the minister, of course, brought it from outside, an idea that was being used over there, so that we also use it to salvage the situation. And for that matter, that was what happened at that time. In terms of quality, as he's saying, I will not say that quality was played down. We used a curriculum. The curriculum that was used to teach students was even changed to the standard-based curriculum. Of course, the teachers that are teaching have been trained. And so I wouldn't say that we use teachers who were probably not doing so well, or let's say untrained teachers. No. And then we also saw that the government tried to put in place some kind of stopgap measures, like when COVID came, those interventions that we put in place, those lessons that were going on TV, those that were going on in the radio and everything. COVID came all of a sudden, and this is what they were able to do. And then also these lessons that were put on pen drives and given to students and given to teachers to use to teach. Laptops were also purchased for teachers. So these were all interventions that were put in place. But of course, since the numbers were increased and facilities were not matching with the numbers, definitely there will be some kind of shortfall. We cannot deny that there could be some kind of shortfall. When I listened to the first speaker, he said something like the previous government meeting the e-blocks and working on some of them. That is true. For instance, I can give a specific example. Where I was, in the Bronx half of BA, at least 2 schools that I knew, one near Atatebubu, and there's another one at Basa. I think this morning I heard the chief of that area praising the 2 governments for helping them to, the previous government, for developing on what the former government, that is Mahama government, left off. Mahama government put up an e-block. In fact, that place is far away from Kwame Danso and from Atebubu. Therefore, the MPP government also, worked on it to complete it, and then also added boarding facility. I can testify to that one. So we are in between. We are not for NDC or for MPP. We are speaking what we have seen and what we can testify to. So we are saying that even though quality was not as it was expected, it wasn't downplayed. Again, accessibility. When we talk of accessibility, gaining access to schools, and we know that a lot more students gain access to schools, and then affordability. Of course, even if we come to those entering schools, they were supposed to provide few things. Probably when you are going to school, you have to go with a cutlass, a broom, and whatever. So they were able to enter all these while. But talking about what the gap, there is an infrastructure gap. Even though the previous government did all that they could by adding more structures, buildings to the existing ones, we still have a gap. At the time that the previous government was leaving office, the double track that was introduced, they had been able to win a lot of them into the single track. And about 30%, that is what was on record. About 30% of the senior high schools were still on the double track. So what we are trying to say is that the gap that has been left, the new government is trying to work on it so that we straighten the rough edges so that we can all move on to the single track, which is a welcome idea. And this new government has done well by, budgeting about 1.4 billion for completion of these abandoned projects and new projects that are yet to come, which is good. So we are all trying to work out so that this nation, our children, will enjoy this free senior high school policy that has been introduced.
So Doc, in your opinion, have we met all the requirements to actually transition from the double track system to a single track, especially moving the remaining 30% to join the 70%, or going on a single track? Or you side with the former education minister who says that if we decide to cancel it now, that can be very disastrous?
Sure. For cancellation, nobody will accept that. But I think the government is doing well by saying that the government says they will eliminate the double track so that all students or all schools will go on the single track. And therefore, one way by which they can salvage the situation is in their manifesto they stated that they will eliminate the double track. They will do away with it, and they are working on it by introducing this 60 new, the private schools to come on board. It's a good idea. It's a way of adding more or opening up the system. But we will, from Edwards, we think that the government need to look at those schools that are running the double track system, the private schools around them, surrounding them, so that they could also, as it were, map these schools with these existing senior high schools, which in the minds of the Ghanaian are good schools. Let's take, for example, Presec. If there are private schools around, a government can map them to Presec and say, this is a next of Presec. When your student gets there, you know that your student is getting, Presec type of education. And therefore, the government must ensure that these private schools that we are adding on, the 60, which is on pilot basis, so that maybe next year more could be added so that we completely do away with the double track. It's a good idea.
Okay.
But we look at how we can map those private schools surrounding the senior high school that everybody would like to enter.
Thank you so much, Doc. I mean, Look, I mean, you have been talking about the success story of the free SSS program, but I am looking at it on your timelines that you gave. Your projection was that between 2023 and 2025, you should be able to phase out the double track system. It looks like that timeline has been met, but there are, I mean, concerns about what you left behind, especially the deficit so far. Do you think that is the right time to do away with the double track, especially looking at it for the fact that your minister, your education minister says that if you try to cancel it now, it could be very disastrous?
Well, thank you. And if you can just give me 2 minutes so that I can get through a few things. The first one is to try to not just respond, but to correct certain things from Honorable Adam Agbada. The first one is on the comment or the statement that was made on Asempa on March 7, 2017 by Honorable Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh. I think that's the one you are referring to, where you say that he had mentioned that 46 schools or 46 e-blocks out of the 123 that were started were completed. But there is a difference between that and what, and I'm happy that Dr. Atifa is also online. And he even mentioned it. We have what is called operationalization of schools. And so that you need to understand some of the nuances, right? So operationalization of schools, 29 were the ones that you could operationalize, right? And Dr. Atifa himself mentioned that even in his own region, the other one I was trying to talk about was Drobonso, right? So even in his own regions, you can say you have completed a building, but the building you have completed cannot be operationalized because children can't get there for school because you are calling them day school. So I just wanted to correct that fact quickly. Then number 2, I am happy that you want to have an academic discussion because it's beautiful, right? When you are talking about Jamal et al. And the research that they did you clearly interrogate their sampling size? Did you clearly interrogate, how the sampling was done? Was it a nationwide sampling? Or was it a purposeful sampling? Is it a rolling sampling? So we need to be able to understand exactly what was done. Listen, when I was the deputy director under Professor Opoku-Amankwa, he gave me a book. It was a very beautiful book, right? So we are all talking about numbers. And Professor, the book he gave me was called How to Lie with Data, right?
How to lie with numbers. How
to lie with numbers, right? And so we could be in this room, and then Adam, myself, and then you were here. And we could say that 67% of the people have visual problems. 2 out of 3 of us are wearing glasses. So that data could be correct. What's sample size, right? So it's important to interrogate that. And once we do that, then we have a clear understanding. Then my last thing was on the quality. And I'm so happy that you mentioned access, affordability, and quality. And so it's such a beautiful thing for us to quickly interrogate what the data is. And I just want you to look at this for me.
NDC 2016 manifesto.
2016 manifesto. Yeah. On page 8 of that manifesto.
You have, let's take a look at what we have achieved thus far. Yeah.
So in the quality that we are talking about, in the NDC party's manifesto in 2016, it talks about what we have achieved so far in terms of WASI performance. And I just want to go from 2011 to 2016 that the party talked about. 2011, they said that 26% of students passed the WASI. In 2012, it says 31.2% of the students passed. In 2013, 19.2% of the students passed. In 2014, 28.1%.
So here we are talking about core subjects.
Yes.
Okay.
2015, 20.2%. 2016, 24.7%.
So that was the NDC's benchmark in their 2016 manifesto in measuring quality.
Exactly.
Right.
Now, if you look at the WAEC data on passes from 2020 to 2024, 2020, 58%. 2021, 59%. 2022, 63%. 2023, 67%. 2024, 68%. So even on the score of the evidence that the NDC itself presented in 2016 and the evidence that WAEC has presented, that's not me, it's WAEC's data, there has been an improvement from an average of about 29% to an average of 63%. So we cannot say that quality has not improved. Listen, it's something we are building on. And I think it is important I like how you opened. You talked about the fact that education needs to be discussed without politics. Because I said earlier that, we cannot sacrifice the future of our children on the altar of political expediency. But it is important that we interrogate data and interrogate it well. And then the last thing, right? I am also happy that you mentioned the fact that Ghana does not write the WASI with the rest of West Africa. I think it is important for you to understand two key things. Why Ghana does not write WASI with the rest of West Africa. And number two, the importance of understanding what norm referencing as well as Stay9 system is. So in a norm referencing system, you can write your exam because you go to write the SAT or LSAT or anything. It's a norm reference. If you write your LSAT and then you get a score of 156 in 2017, I go and write my LSAT and I get a score of 110 in 2021. It is the same examination.
Because of standardization.
It's norm referencing. It's not a Stay9 system. Now, you need to understand the historical antecedents as to why our students were gradually moving back to writing WASI with the rest of West Africa. When COVID-19 hit in the year 2020, the entire world closed, including Ghana. We closed down schools. If you remember, we closed down schools for almost 10 months. Now, during that period, Ghana made a decision, and the rest of West Africa followed us. We made a decision in June that we were going to take our final year students back into school. And when we bring them back into school, we're going to give them about a 6 to 8 week academic preparation because that is what was left when schools were closed in March before they would have started their May-June examination. And then we'll write the exam. The rest of West Africa came along with us and we wrote the exam. Now, when we wrote that exam, the rest of West Africa reopened schools right away. Ghana did not reopen school until January 2021. So we made a decision and went to the West Africa Examination Council, which is not the Ghana Examination Council. And we told the West Africa Examination Council that we do not, like I said, want to sacrifice the future of our children on political expediency or any other expediency. We want our children to have the full academic preparation before they write exams. The rest of the country said they'll go back to May-June. And we said, no way. We won't sacrifice our children because of going back to May-June. But we don't set the exam. WAEC set a norm reference exam for our students to write when they finish the curriculum. Is that a sin? It's not a sin. I don't want my children to suffer because I don't want to speed them through. And we told the West Africa Examination Council that it would take us about 5 to 6 years to get back to writing May-June with them. And in any case, over the past 2 years, we write all the core papers together. What Ghana has done is that we have flip-flopped when the practicals are done. So that when the West Africa is doing their practicals, our students are preparing. Then our students go into the practicals and then we all write the core together. So you need to be able to understand the intricacies that go into some of these things. And I appreciate
I think we should go on the double track.
But I thought it was important.
You come in. On
okay,
on the tangent of double track.
On the tangent of
the timelines you gave.
Yes.
2023, 2025.
Yes.
So
in the double track, we said that the double track was going to be from 2018 and it was going to be ended in 5 to 7 years. By 2021, we actually had enough infrastructure to revert, but for COVID. So in 2021 academic year moving forward, we actually stopped what is called the double track. People still call it the double track.
In fact, I recall the PRO of the Education Ministry, Kwesi Kwarteng making that point that 2021-2022 academic year, the double track system was going to be phased out.
And then we moved into what is called the transitional calendar because of COVID. Because our promise, see, the double track, there were a number of things that were done. Number one, we knew that there was an infrastructure gap. And we knew that you needed to build different facilities, 1,132 different facilities across the country. We knew that it was an infrastructure project that would take anywhere between 5 to 7 years. And so then, to do the infrastructure, we then went to Cabinet and to Parliament for what was called Get Fund Securitization. So in the Get Fund Securitization, basically what we said is, okay, over the next 10 years, this is the amount of money Get Fund is expected to have. We want to take some of that money up front to do infrastructure. So let's securitize it against bonds. So we went for Get Fund securitization. Parliament approved it. Get Fund began to raise the first tranche of their securitization. And that's what was used for a lot of the infrastructure. We completed about 60 to 65% of the infrastructure by 2021. We were ready to have even moved from double track, but for COVID. So the process was to ensure that 5 to 7 years it is done. That 7 years is September 2025.
But how are you going to do it when the data shows that your budget credibility from 2017 to 2022 was on a nosedive? You started a program 2017-2018 academic year, you spent more than budgeted, people clapped for you 120%. Then you moved to 99, you moved to 76% into the COVID period, you moved to 58% of your budget, release of your budget. Then you moved to 51%, 2021-2022. You only offered 51% of what you budgeted. So how are you going to do to phase out the double track system without the problems of feeding and all of other attended challenges?
Well,
I mean, if David can show the budget credibility charts, I'll be very grateful, yeah.
Every year up to now, students have attended school. Teachers have been paid. Classes have happened. Students have written WASI, right? Nobody is going to say that in this country, except for the 2017 when free SHS was first introduced, that in this country, we have been able to do 100% of budget releases. It has not happened.
51% is woefully inadequate.
Let me at least land, right? It has never happened. But the country has moved, right? And that's why I'm saying, if you look at free SHS, it has continued to happen, right? But to end double track has nothing to do with budget credibility or not. The infrastructure is there. The spaces that students are going to sit in is there. See, there is a difference between desirable schools and available infrastructure.
This is not just for CAPEX, right? This budget comprises of your, salaries. There is CAPEX in there, there is goods and services. Definitely, you cannot say you will not pay teachers for a year. So as for the salary side, you will pay. It means that when you're seeing budget credibility reducing to 51%, what suffers is capital expenditure and goods and services. Is that not the reason why we had serious challenges with feeding in the last 2-3 years of the free SHS program?
I think that the issues around feeding, began somewhere in 2021, 2022. And that was a decision of the minister then to change how the feeding arrangement was done. Moving from the buffer stock to a different arrangement, right? But for the Ghana Education Service, we continue to implement our free SHS. We continue to implement learning. Students continue to eat. Food continued to come. While there were challenges in terms of how food came, they continue to come. When the new government came in, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama's government came in, right? A decision was made. I was still Deputy Director General
and
of
you
the Ghana
started
Education
owing
Service,
food supplies, right? And all of that?
When the new government came in, I was still Deputy Director General. There was meetings at there were meetings at Jubilee House, and then a decision was made that, okay, government was going to send monies to schools so that schools can purchase their own things, right? The first tranche went in when I was still Deputy Director General. second tranche went in. Then a letter went in to the schools that government is now going to supply, which is reverting to what is happening. Why did they see it that way?
Okay.
Because they immediately realized that economies of scale, when you purchase in bulk, cost reduces.
We're going to have the final leg of the conversation, and Adam will come in. I can see he's prepared to come. We're just taking a short break, and when we come back, you have your bites, and then we'll go to EduWatch also to have their bites, and we'll call it a day. Thank you very much for staying with us here on PM Express. Before the break, Adam was about to have his bites on the double track system, and you have some rebuttals to also make, right?
Yes, Isaac. Before I touch on the double track, let me also use about 2-3 minutes to...
You can have 2 minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes to rebut some of the things that Doc said. It's interesting that Doc mentioned the book, How to Lie with Statistics, because obviously he said he got that book from his boss. It means he read it, got himself so immersed in it, such that this evening he chose to lie with statistics. Because
that's
no, it's not political. You lied with statistics. So allow me to go in. Because all of a sudden, you said that the NDC completed. There was no operationalization in your statement. I do understand the nuances of operationalization and completion. You mentioned categorical that
not all of them. That's what Matthew said.
No, you see, Doc, I kept quiet for you to finish. No, I wrote a lot, so you can also write it down.
That's
when you were lying with your statistics, I kept quiet for you. Let's respect our audience. I kept quiet for you. You knew that 46 were completed, but you chose to mention 29. And when you were questioned, you now decided to say operationalization and completion are different. In any case, who operationalizes a completed school? A school becomes operational when the Ghana Education Service, which you headed, decides to send students. No, you were deputy, means that you were part of leadership. Okay, so that shouldn't be a substantive matter for digression. You operationalize the school. So you must admit that President Mahama left 46 completed senior high schools.
That could not be operational.
No, you see what makes it operational? Initially, you said 29, so admit that you lied. And I have the list of all the 46 here. And I can share it with you. In fact, on my Join Online, your own network, the list is there, and I can give you the link to it. And so let it be on record that 46 were completed and handed over to you. Okay, the rest were on various stages of completion. Now, let's move into the issue of double track. You claim that by 2021, double track was
ready to be phased out.
But in 2021, and I have here a publication, again on my Joy Online, where the Minister of Education, the Honorable Dr. Educhum, was said, and he is quoted here saying that government intends to spend 1.5 billion to phase out double track by the end of 2024.
1.5 billion Ghana cedis?
1.5 billion Ghana cedis. Okay. Where the contradiction? You, Deputy Director GES, you have a different date, different figure, different timeline. Your minister, sector minister, who sits at cabinet, tells us that he wanted to phase it out by 2024. If indeed it was phased out, or it was ready to be phased out by 2021, why wasn't it phased out? Why would the minister now go on to say that by 2024, they intend to spend 1.4 billion? And so, again, you lied. And here, between 2021 and 2024, before you left office, records have it that 1.5 billion was never spent. Again, your own research, as your producer showed it on the screen, where the budget credibility, it got to a point, 51%, paltry 51% was what they released. And the education sector was choking, was suffocating at the point, and there are many publications, even on your own network, where at the point PTAs demanded that if parents were charged or were asked to make some contributions for their wards to be able to feed. I watched a particular documentary on your own network where what was being fed to our brothers and sisters, our children in senior high schools was such a pity.
I recall it's called empty plates.
Empty plate. Yeah. And so if indeed you were funding and you were putting in money into the program, these documentaries and all the available records show that indeed your budget credibility was so much affected that even feeding became a challenge. And so double track was never ended. or was never ready to be phased out. When the NDC government came into power in January 2025, we inherited over 346 schools that were on the double track system. As we speak today, between January and August, as we speak today, 99 of those schools have been phased out, and so we have only 247 left that will be on double track. Now, what we promised was that we wanted to phase out
so you provided funding for all of this project within this period?
So I'll tell you what we have done. What we have done significantly is that, one, we decided to bring in the private senior high schools. We are bringing almost 70 private senior high schools. Now, with the 70 senior high schools that we are bringing, the number of spaces that they will create will cater for about those 99 schools that will be phased out of the double track.
Who is going to fund this?
Government is funding. What government intends to do is that government is paying the same amounts that we are paying for day students in day senior high schools, which is about 1,500 or so. I may have to refer to the specifics, but it's around that figure. About 1,500 Ghana cedis per student for all these private schools that have been onboarded on the free senior high school. And so that will lead to a decrease in the numbers in some of these public schools, and those 99 schools will be phased out as school resumes in October. Again, we have done something very significant, which is the fact that for the first time, after the policy was introduced, we have dedicated funding for it. And it's one thing that we promised. Since January, government has spent about 1.5 billion Ghana cedis on free SHS. And we have dedicated Get Fund to provide. Now, under the NPP government, Get Fund, which should have been the savior in providing educational infrastructure to address the challenge of the infrastructure deficit that we were confronted with across all levels of our education, government decided to collateralize Get Fund or to cap Get Fund, and Get Fund was not getting money to complete projects. Now, as a member of the Education Committee, we spent the last recess period visiting many senior high schools across the country. Almost every senior high school in this country has 2, 3, or more Get Fund projects that have been abandoned under the NPP government. When you go to my constituency, Apipa Senior High School, we have 2 major Get Fund projects abandoned by the NPP government because they decided to use Get Fund to take loans to invest in unproductive sectors. And so even infrastructure deficit worsened under them. And so clearly, the available records, after we have decapped Get Fund, government is now spending more to complete projects. And I tell you that over the last 7 months, President Mahama has spent 1.4 billion on free SHS alone. There is no single senior high school in this country today that is still suffering from food shortage. There is no single senior high school in this country that will say, for lack of funds, they are unable to complete their projects. Get Fund has stepped in. Government has invested so much. Again, there is another very important point.
And if you can make that under 30 seconds.
That I'm also as part of sampling, which is the issue of sampling size of the research or the survey, the study that I made reference to. There's a reason why it is called inferential statistics. 58 senior high schools were sampled. 58. And we all know that in statistics. Why is Doc expecting that every single senior high school in this country be sampled before he will believe the methodology?
Because once you follow the laws of probability, you
cannot
should be able to generate.
You cannot. Yes. No,
depending on the one.
No, but it is. But even when you read the abstract of that particular study, when you read the abstract of that particular study, it is you under your leadership. You gave them the authorization, and they had explained to you their sample size, and you okayed it. DES okayed it.
We have less than.
The point is that double track was supposed to be a temporary measure because of the surge in numbers. And government promised, under the Akufo-Addo government, they promised that they would use between 5 to 7 years to phase out the double track. They failed to do so.
They're still within time.
No, they are not within time because 2018, when you promised that between 5 to 7 years, within time, when is the time? It's supposed to be between 2023
the last
to
period is supposed to
2025.
be, September 2025.
And I tell you, there has been no significant improvement
so why
in
are
infrastructure.
You facing it out?
We are facing it out because, one, beyond the fact that it remains a prime promise of President Mahama and the NDC in the last elections, we have realized the implication of maintaining the double track in our educational system is not good for quality. It has impact on quality. It lessens contact hours of teachers and students. And that is why we are facing it out. But how do you face it out without creating chaos? Unlike them, we engage in meticulous policy planning. And that is what they fail to do with regards. And that is why, as far back as March, to conclude, as far back as March, we established an 11-member committee made up of very respectable educationists to look at the double track system and advise government on how to face it out. For the first time in 9 years, government has given out the calendar for reopening of school almost 2 months before time. In their time, there was so much chaos. Extracurricular activities were even affected. Sometimes students wake up in the morning on Monday. By Wednesday, they have received a message that they have to report on the Friday. So at the end of the day, there was so much chaos in the educational system. Now, we are resetting. And the resetting agenda has led to a very, very serene atmosphere across all campuses. That is why today, students are not complaining about feeding any longer because government has made adequate provisions. Government has provided, and that is why Get Fund is moving.
So on the wheels of policy, let me bring in Dr. Atifa. Doc, you have listened to both arguments. Do you think that, well, the Education Minister says between now and 2028, we need about $2.5 billion to solve the infrastructure problem in the entire education sector? Do you think that is the right time to phase out the double track system, or we still need some time for breathing space?
Well, if we are committed, then of course we're going to do that. They will be able to do that. But I want to draw the attention of both for us at Africa Education Watch, we know, or we have done our search and we have seen that the problem that came along with the double track was 90% cash flow and 10% procurement problems. You see, the Minister of Finance was not releasing the funds as the Minister of Education wanted. Those who supplied were not paid at the right time, and they complained. And also the buffer stock and the Ghana Commodity Exchange, they were buying in bulk. They used to buy, stock these foods, and if they did not have, or even the schools, if they did not have places to store them properly, the food would definitely get spoiled. The quality of the food will be reduced, or the food will expire. And so we think that by expanding this infrastructure, in other words, by bringing in these private schools, then the government need to put certain measures in place. As I said, I've mentioned one, that if they could map these private schools with the existing DT schools, double track schools.
Doc, have you done the costing of bringing on board the private schools?
Yeah, of course.
How much do you think it will cost?
It is going to cost a lot by bringing this. In fact, looking at the staff, let's take even the staff. We need to get the data on the staff of in the private institutions. Are they all qualified? Not all of them are qualified to teach at that level. Because most of the private schools, they want to hire people, they will pay low. And therefore, some of them are not qualified. Is the government going to, lay them off and recruit new ones or bring new teachers, those who qualify to take their places? We need to look at all these. We have to obtain data on the students. We have to obtain data on the staff. Data on infrastructure, furniture, and also a lot of things that we need to do.
We have just a minute. Thank you so much, Doc. I mean, we have just a minute to go, and Dr. Tando, you have the last bite. You have just less than 1 minute to actually respond.
Well, what I'm going to say is that this is not a fight. It's about continuity.
Okay.
All right. And so I was actually happy when the Honorable Minister said that they're going to phase out double track, because double track was never intended to be a permanent intervention, right? But it was a temporary solution to address an issue that allowed some 1,274,000 students to gain access to education. So it is a matter of ensuring that we look at what is already existing. And that's what I was trying to refer to, Adam, Honorable. What I was trying to refer to is that there is a difference between desirability space and available space, right? Because my very good friend, the Honorable Minister for Foreign Affairs, in his community, there is a school called Bator Senior High School.
I know Bator.
It is an amazing school in terms of infrastructure. Bator could be turned into a university. But desirability makes Bator underpopulated. We have a lot of such schools.
So that's why we have the computerized election system. So again, you created a big mess at the CSP. No, because I'm correcting because Isaac.
See, he thinks that
one of the reasons why the computerized system was introduced.
We are not fighting.
Was to ensure
sometimes you place them there and they don't go.
No, it's not even about placing. See,
but they're supposed to know the number of spaces.
Relax. In this our Ghana, senior high school education is by choice. It's not by force. When you were going to senior high school,
yes,
from here,
yes,
what school did you choose?
I chose Maoli.
Exactly.
Yes.
What if we had placed you in Tengbe?
No, if that is what my results gave me, chances are that if the system does not allow you to change, many of the students they go.
No, you can't, because
so do you mean that even if there's no space at Maoli, then because 10,000 students chose it, you place them at Maoli?
This is where time will allow us to peg our conversation. We have to wrap up. This is Joy News, independent, fearless, and credible. My name is Isaac Ofeje. Do have a great night.